Now that we know a few things about building a material, let's see what we can do about applying a few to a scene. I'm using a file named Applying Materials, although anything you might have on your screen will work for this demonstration. Let's begin by first opening the Materials Editor. For that, I'll simply tap the M key on the keyboard. Now, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. Let's see if we can't build a few solid colored materials using a different technique each time around. I'll begin with the sample ball in the upper left-hand corner of the editor, turning its color red. To do that, I'll click on the Diffuse Color Swatch. Then grab the handle in the red ramp on the upper right-hand corner of the color selector, pulling it to the far right. I'll then drop down to the saturation value, taking that to the far right also. Let's now move to the sample slot to the right of the red material, making that green. Again, I'll click on the Diffuse Color Swatch, but this time drop down to the hue ramp on the right, clicking in the green area. I'll then increase both my saturation and my value. For one more, let's select the sample slot on the top right and turn it blue. This time around, I'll be using the rainbow colored chart on the left-hand side of the dialog. I'll click in the blue area. Holding my mouse down, I'll pull straight up. I'll then grab the whiteness slider to the right-hand side of the colored chart, again pulling that to the top. And that'll get us ready to go. Now, there's a couple different ways to apply a material. The easiest is to simply drag and drop the material from the sample slot into the viewport and on top of an object. We'll do that by applying the red material to the cone. We'll grab the red color ball, moving it down to the viewport. Now when you get there, notice the cursor is changed into a no sign. That'll disappear as soon as you move your mouse directly on top of an object. With the mouse now on top of the cone, let go of the left mouse button. And that's all there is to it. Another option for assigning a material is to first select the object in the scene. For this one, let's first select the cylinder on the right. Then you'll want to choose the material you're going to assign to the object, and drop down to the horizontal row of icons below the sample slots, choosing Assign Material to Selection. Now, with those two materials in the scene, I'd like you to now go back to the Materials Editor and more closely study the three colored sample balls at the top. Notice two of those sample slots have white triangles around their borders. Those triangles indicate that those materials have been applied to the scene. You'll notice the blue ball doesn't carry those triangles, and you know why. We've yet to apply it into our view. If you look a little closer at those triangle markings, you'll notice that one set is solid white in color and the other is gray with a white border. The difference there is the white triangles represent the fact that that particular material has been applied to what is selected in the view. So you'll see with the cylinder selected, you'll see it's the green material that has the white triangles around its border. If you instead select the cone, you'll notice the white triangles are now around the red material. Now, when you run into a situation where you'd like to edit or change a material, I'd strongly suggest that you first make a copy of that material. Therefore, no matter how many changes you make, if you ever want to go back to the original, well, it's simply a matter of getting it back in the scene. So why don't we copy the red material down to the ball directly below. Now, if we decide to change the cone's color to orange, we can do that. Now, I want you to notice something. The slot in the material editor is changed to orange, but not the cone. What gives? Well, if you look at the two materials on the left, you'll notice we haven't been working on the material that's actually applied to the scene. So you got to be careful of that when making a copy. Be sure that when you make your edits that you're working on the correct material. So if I go back to the original red material, change its color to orange, you'll see the results now reflect inside the viewports. Now, when thinking about the two techniques we've used to apply a skin, you might be wondering why in the heck would you ever use the Assign a Material icon when dragging and dropping is so easy? Well, the reason is you're not always going to be able to get a clean shot at getting your mouse directly on top of an object. Sometimes things are in real close proximity to each other, and dragging a material onto a particular object might instead having you hit the object directly next door. Let's take a look at an example of that. I'm going to minimize the Materials Editor, draw a selection window around all three objects in my scene, then hit Delete on the keyboard. I'll now right-click and in the top portion of the menu choose Unhide All. What we have here is a sphere buried inside a torus knot. Now, making solid contact with the torus knot is going to be easy. So I'll simply reopen my editor, and why don't we drag and drop the green material on it. Now the situation is going to be a little bit different in trying to get a clean look at the sphere. Let's select the orange material and see if we can't drag and drop it onto the ball. So we're going to pull it into the viewport, keep our fingers crossed, then let go of the mouse. Well, there you go. My hand wasn't steady enough to do the good old drag and drop method. So let's first undo the operation. Then select the sphere in the view, then use the Assign Material to Selection icon on the lower left. That gives us a much more accurate way of applying a material when things are in close quarters. You should also be aware that you can apply the same material to several objects at the same time. Let's select both things in our scene and apply the blue skin. Now, if you use the drag and drop method to do so, a dialog box will open up giving you the option to apply the new skin to either the object your mouse was directly on top of when you let go of the mouse button, or to the entire selection. Let's leave it set to Assign to Selection and click OK. I'm going to get the surfaces back to their original two colors by hitting Undo. Now, I want you to also notice that applying a material to an object doesn't change the color of its wireframe. No matter what skin an object might have on it, it'll always display in its original wireframe color when being viewed in a non-shaded window. And one more thing about the sample slots in the material editor. The dragging and dropping method of taking a material to another slot works just as well when trying to clear off a slot when wanting to make a new material. There's no problem in dragging a clean gray ball onto a slot that's already been used. Now, if you've run out of available clean sample balls, you can always just hit the Reset Map Materials icon on the row of buttons below the sample slots. I'm going to go ahead and resave my file using the name Retrieving Materials, knowing that I'll be using it in an upcoming video. Okay, that'll give you the important things to know about applying skins. Before jumping in, always think about which technique will work best, considering the placement and position of the objects in your scene.